The taxi pulled up to a small private airport just as the sun was starting to dip behind the horizon. Liam felt the weight of his guitar pressing against his back as he climbed out, his stomach still uneasy from the meal that had barely settled. He glanced around, taking in the quiet tarmac. The sleek private planes waiting, the smell of fuel and late afternoon air mixing into a strange, intoxicating combination. Alden stepped ahead of him, his coat brushing against the taxi as he moved. "This way," he said, his voice calm, firm, but somehow reassuring. "No need to worry. Everything is under control." Liam wanted to believe him, but control was a foreign word in his life these days. His hands tightened around the strap of his guitar. He had spent years scraping by, taking odd jobs, playing music for tips, surviving on instant noodles and the occasional kindness of strangers. And now, somehow, he was about to get on a plane with a man he barely knew, headed toward a life he couldn't even imagine. The plane was smaller than he expected. A sleek private jet, interior dimly lit, leather seats polished and cool to the touch. The moment Liam stepped inside, he felt like a child sneaking into a world that had always belonged to someone else. Alden sat opposite him, placing a folder on the seat between them. "Food, water, coffee. Relax," he said, almost casually. Liam stared, unsure where to look first. He sank into the leather seat, exhaustion finally catching up with him. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the faint hum of the engines fill the silence. He could still feel the echo of Ruby's voice from the cafe, the warmth in her eyes as she had smiled at him. That moment had been fleeting, yet it felt like a tether to the life he had almost lost. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he hoped she hadn't forgotten him. Alden leaned back, his hands clasped. "Your grandfather, Leonard Hayes. He's been trying to reach you for a long time through letters, intermediaries, anyone he could trust. But you've never responded." Liam's chest tightened. "I never wanted to respond. He hurt my mother. He hurt us. He doesn't get to decide anything about me." Alden's gaze was steady. "I understand. But you should hear him out. He's dying. He wants to see you." "That's all," Liam swallowed, feeling a strange mixture of anger, resentment, and curiosity. Dying, the word hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. He had always imagined what it would feel like if Leonard Hayes ever returned. But this was different. It wasn't a shadow from the past. It was a man reaching from the edge of life, asking for something he might never deserve. The plane lifted off the tarmac, smooth and silent. Liam watched the city shrink beneath him, lights flickering like distant stars. Memories of his childhood flashed through his mind, his mother teaching him to play chords, the music they had shared on quiet nights, the arguments that had ended in doors slamming, the absence of his father's approval. Everything he had built inside himself, every dream, every moment of hope, felt both fragile and significant at once. He opened his eyes as Alden handed him a thick envelope. "For you? From your grandfather," he said. Liam hesitated, running a finger over the edges. "Money, letters." "Both," Alden said quietly. "And maybe more. But don't open it yet. Let him speak first." The plane hummed around them as Liam stared at the envelope, thinking about everything it represented. A connection he had never sought, a chance he hadn't known existed, and a confrontation he hadn't prepared for. His fingers itched to touch the guitar, to strum it and remind himself that he was still himself, still Liam, still the boy who had survived when no one expected him to. Hours later, the plane touched down near an estate that looked impossibly large, with manicured lawns stretching farther than Liam's eyes could see. Trees lined the property in perfect symmetry, and stone paths led to a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Liam felt out of place, his jeans and hoodie clashing with the grandeur around him. Every step toward the front doors felt surreal, as though he had entered a dream where he didn't belong. Inside, the house was silent, vast, and filled with a faint smell of old wood and polished floors. The staff moved gracefully, acknowledging him with polite nods, their expressions neutral but attentive. Liam's hands were clammy. He gripped the guitar strap and followed Alden down a long hallway. each step echoing in the emptiness. Finally, they reached a room where sunlight streamed through tall windows. In a leather chair sat Leonard Hayes. The man looked older than Liam remembered from photographs then. Frail hair, white at the temples, but his eyes, those eyes were still sharp, still commanding, and now softened with age, regret. And something Liam couldn't name? Liam, Leonard whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Liam froze. Why now? The words slipped out before he could stop them. Rage and hurt tangled together in his throat. Leonard's hands shook as he leaned forward. Because I have made mistakes, and I do not have much time left. I cannot change the past, but I can try to make amends. If you let me? Liam's stomach tightened. Anger surged, old wounds opened. You hurt my mother. You hurt us. You don't get to decide when or how you appear. Leonard nodded, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. I know, and I am sorry. More than I can ever say. But I want to help you now, if you'll let me. For a long moment, Liam said nothing. He looked down at his guitar, tracing the scratches and faded wood. Thinking of every night he had spent learning, every sleepless hour he had dedicated to music, every struggle he had endured just to survive. And now this man, his grandfather, was asking for forgiveness, offering something he didn't yet understand. Alden stepped aside and opened a drawer, placing a thick envelope on the table. For your music? For the life you should have had. Liam stared at it. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to reject it as a bribe, as an attempt to buy back time he hadn't lost but had fought for in his own way. I don't want to be bought, he whispered, barely audible. Leonard shook his head. It's not a payment. It's an apology. And perhaps a chance for you to live the life you've deserved all along. The room fell silent. The sunlight caught the dust in the air, making it shimmer like tiny golden threads. Liam's mind raced. He wanted to scream, to run, to grab his guitar and disappear back into the city that had been his prison and his sanctuary. But something stopped him. Something in Leonard's voice, in the quiet regret behind his words, made him pause. Leonard's eyes softened further. I heard you play once. When you were 16? Outside your school. You didn't know I was there. Liam's heart skipped a beat. Memories came flooding back the cold afternoon. The way his fingers had trembled over the strings, the melody he had improvised about wanting to be seen and heard. He had never forgotten it. You played a song, Leonard continued softly, about wanting to be seen. And I remember thinking, this boy deserves better than I gave him. Liam felt a lump form in his throat. Anger, resentment, and a strange budding understanding collided inside him. He closed his eyes, letting the memory wash over him, letting the music remind him of who he had always been, regardless of neglect, hunger, or failure. Leonard reached out a trembling hand. Let me see you now. Let me hear you play again. For a long moment, Liam hesitated. Every instinct told him to refuse, to protect himself, to hold on to the anger that had been his armor. But then he felt something he hadn't felt in years, an ache for connection, for recognition, for understanding. Slowly, he placed the guitar across his lap and strummed a chord. The sound filled the room. Soft at first, then growing more confident. The music wove itself into the silence, bridging the gap between grandfather and grandson, past and present, hurt and hope. Leonard's eyes glistened, and Liam realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about erasing pain. It was about allowing space for something new to grow. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes before Leonard spoke again. You have a gift, Liam. Don't let it go. Promise me you'll play no matter what. For yourself and for those who couldn't see you when they should have. Liam nodded, overwhelmed by emotion. Words failed him. He felt the weight of the envelope in front of him, the potential it held, and the truth that he didn't have to accept it all at once. He didn't have to forgive everything immediately, but he could start, and in that fragile, quiet moment, he allowed himself to believe, just a little, that life could be different. That hope could exist even after years of hardship. That love, even complicated, even painful, could still find a place in his heart. When Alden cleared his throat, gently reminding him that the world beyond the estate still existed, Liam realized he was ready to face it again. The city, the campus, Ruby waiting somewhere in his life, everything was still there, and he wasn't alone anymore. As they walked down the long hallways of the mansion toward the waiting car, Liam held his guitar tight, a symbol of his past, his present, and perhaps his future. Leonard's eyes followed him, full of quiet hope and fragile pride. And for the first time, Liam felt that maybe, just maybe, he could accept the life that had been waiting for him all along. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the estate grounds. Liam didn't look back, but he felt the presence of his grandfather's intentions behind him. And as the car drove away, carrying him toward the unknown, he realized that this journey, one he had never asked for, was already reshaping him. For the first time in years, Liam felt the thrill of possibility. Liam Hayes sat on the cracked curb outside the pawn shop, his hands wrapped tightly around his sunburst guitar. The wood was scratched, the strings slightly warped, but it was his, the only piece of his life that had survived everything. He hadn't eaten in almost 24 hours. His stomach grumbled with a hollow sound that made him flinch. Rent was overdue. The electricity was off, and the little money he had saved from his campus job had vanished on bus fare and coffee. He felt himself trembling not from the cold, but from desperation. He looked at the pawnshop window, dusty and dim, a faint neon sign flickering. "Sell it! Sell it! Get some food!" He whispered the words aloud, almost as if saying them would make them real. His fingers traced the edge of the guitar, remembering the nights he had played softly in his mother's kitchen. The nights when the music had drowned out the shouting. He remembered the smell of rain on the windowsill, his mother's tired smile, and the small pride in her eyes when he got his first scholarship to music school. But those memories felt like someone else's life now. Liam stood and adjusted the strap over his shoulder. He walked slowly toward the pawnshop door, every step heavy with a mixture of shame and determination. He could barely meet the eyes of the people passing by, some carrying grocery bags, some on their phones, oblivious to the boy about to sell his dreams for a meal. He gritted his teeth and pushed the door open, the bell jingling above him. Inside, the air smelled of metal, old wood, and stale money. A middle-aged clerk looked up from behind the counter, barely glancing at him. Liam set the guitar down, the hollow body thumping softly against the floor. I want to sell this," Liam stammered. His voice sounded weak even to him. The clerk raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. Liam fidgeted with the strap. Or, maybe pawn it. I need cash. For food, rent, whatever you can give me." Before the clerk could answer, a voice spoke from behind him. "You play?" Liam turned sharply. A man stood a few feet away, tall, dressed in a gray coat, hands buried in his pockets. His hair was streaked with silver, but his eyes were striking, bright and curious. Liam hesitated. "Yeah, I play used to," the man said, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Liam's throat tightened. "I have to sell it. I don't have a choice." The man nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "Sit outside. Play for me? Just for a minute." Liam's hands froze on the guitar. He didn't know this man, didn't know why he cared. But something in the man's tone, the quiet insistence, made Liam move. He picked up the guitar and stepped back into the sunlight. He sat on the cold bench outside, fingers trembling on the strings. He strummed once, twice, letting the sound escape into the empty street. His hands shook at first, but then the music began to flow. He played softly at first, a hesitant melody, but then it became stronger, more confident. Every note carrying a piece of his story. The man watched silently, his eyes fixed on Liam. "You know jazz?" he asked after a few minutes. Liam blinked. "A little," he said, almost embarrassed. "Show me." The man said, something inside Liam, a spark he thought had long died ignited. He shifted, letting the fingers that had played hundreds of songs over the years move freely. The melody changed, grew richer, deeper. Improvisation came naturally, even though it had been months since he last played like this. His heart beat in rhythm with the music, and for the first time in days, he forgot about hunger, rent, the crushing weight of failure. When he finished, the man's smile widened. Better than a little. Much better. Liam hugged the guitar to his chest. Doesn't matter. I have to sell it. The man's expression softened. Why? You in trouble? Liam's voice trembled. I need food, rent. I'm behind on everything. I don't know what else to do. The man took a slow breath. What's your name? Liam Hayes, he said cautiously. The man's eyes widened slightly. Hayes. Leonard Hayes. Liam froze, every instinct screaming at him. He knew the name, of course. His grandfather, a man who had never forgiven his mother, who had cast her out years ago, leaving Liam's family to scrape together a life. He had always believed Leonard Hayes wanted nothing to do with him. Now, here was a stranger tall, gray-coated, masking about him with recognition in his eyes. That's my grandfather, Liam whispered. But he hasn't spoken to me in years. The man smiled slowly. Well, kid, I think your life is about to change. Liam wanted to laugh, but the sound got stuck in his throat. Change his life had already fallen apart. How could anything change for the better now? The man introduced himself as Alden, though he gave no details about who he really was. He only said he had a way to help if Liam would trust him. Trust. Liam hadn't felt that word in years. It tasted foreign on his tongue. You need to eat, Alden said simply. Come with me. Liam hesitated. The guitar weighed heavily against him, a reminder of everything he loved and everything he had to leave behind. Hunger gnawed at him. His stomach reminded him that he hadn't eaten in nearly a day. The thought of a warm meal of relief finally made the decision for him. He followed Alden down the street to a small cafe. The moment they stepped inside, the warmth hit him. The smell of bread and coffee made his head spin. Alden ordered food for him without asking. Liam stared, unable to form words. The sandwich, the soup, the glass of water, they seemed miraculous. Every bite brought tears to his eyes. He hadn't realized how desperate he had been until the comfort hit him. You're lucky I found you when I did, Alden said, sitting across from him. Your grandfather has been looking for you? Liam choked on his food. He's been looking for me. Why? He never wanted anything to do with us. Alden's tone was gentle, almost apologetic. Because he's dying. He wants to see you. Talk. To make amends in his own way. Liam's mind spun. Leonard Hayes's grandfather, the man who had been a shadow over his family, was dying. And now someone was telling him he wanted to see Liam. He didn't know what. To feel anger, fear, confusion. Hope, all of it collided in his chest, making it hard to breathe. Before he could respond, the cafe door opened. A girl walked in, sketchpad clutched to her chest, hair falling in messy brown waves around her face. She looked around and her eyes landed on Liam. Recognition flashed. Liam Hayes, she asked, approaching cautiously. You're the guy from the music building. You played outside the library sometimes. Liam blinked, taken aback. Yeah, that's me. I didn't know you noticed. She smiled faintly, shyly. I did. I've always liked your music. A warmth spread through Liam's chest, a spark he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just hunger or fear, it was a connection. A small, fragile thread of hope that maybe life wasn't entirely lost, Ruby. She said, holding out her hand. Liam shook it. Liam, they talked briefly about music, about the classes they shared, about dreams neither had yet achieved. And for a moment, the crushing weight of reality lifted. Liam almost forgot the envelope of despair he had been carrying around for months. But Alden's voice cut through the moment. We need to go now. Ruby looked worried. Plain Liam? What's going on? Liam shook his head, unsure what to say. The world he had known, the world of struggle and survival, was already shifting beneath him. He had no idea what awaited him. No idea that this strange man, this unexpected opportunity, would pull him into a life he had never imagined. As they left the cafe, Liam's fingers brushed against the guitar. The strings hummed softly, as if reminding him that no matter what happened, this music was still his. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he realized that for the first time in a long time, he felt the faintest flicker of hope. But he also knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. And outside, Ruby watched him go, a quiet worry etched into her face. Sensing that the boy she had admired from afar was stepping into a story much larger than either of them could yet understand. Liam didn't know it yet, but in a matter of hours, he would meet the man who had shaped his family's life in ways he had never known. And that meeting would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, forgiveness, and who he was meant to become. The car rolled slowly up the long driveway, its tires crunching over the gravel. Liam gripped his guitar tightly, the familiar weight grounding him as his mind spun. Everything he had known, everything he had fought to survive was behind him now. And in front of him lay a world he had only glimpsed in stories and dreams. The estate was massive, grander than anything he had ever imagined. Stone columns framed the entrance, and sunlight glinted off polished windows. A fountain gurgled quietly in the center of the circular driveway, sending tiny rainbows into the air. He followed Alden through the front doors, stepping onto marble floors so smooth his shoes slid slightly. Staff moved gracefully, acknowledging them with polite nods, yet maintaining a respectful distance. The air smelled faintly of wood polish and something floral, a delicate perfume of wealth and age. Liam's chest tightened. He felt small, insignificant. A boy from cramped apartments and empty pantries stepping into a world of unimaginable wealth. "Wait here," Alden instructed, motioning to a comfortable chair in a sunlit hallway. Liam sank into it, heart hammering. He glanced down at his guitar, resting across his knees. The scratches, the faded sunburst. The slightly warped strings, all reminders of a life built with persistence, pain, and love. He wasn't sure if he could let go of the familiar, even for the chance at something better. Moments later, the door opened. Leonard Hayes sat in a leather chair by the window, sunlight streaming over him, casting a warm glow on his pale-lined face. The man looked fragile, thin, his hands trembling slightly. But his eyes, those sharp, commanding eyes, were softened with age, regret, and vulnerability Liam had never seen before. "Liam," Leonard said quietly. The name struck Liam like a physical blow. Years of anger, bitterness, and abandonment rushed to the surface. "Why now?" he demanded. "Why, after all these years? You left us. You ignored us. And now you're dying, and suddenly you want to see me." Leonard's gaze dropped for a moment, shame flickering across his features. "I made mistakes, Liam, more than you can know. I should have been there for your mother, for you. I let pride and fear dictate my actions. And now, time has grown short. I can't undo the past, but I want to try to make amends." Anger and grief surged inside Liam. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. The nights of tears, the sacrifices she had made alone. Amends? You think giving me money or an apology will fix years of pain? He shouted, the words spilling out despite himself. Leonard nodded slowly, accepting the anger without interruption. "No, I don't expect that. I only ask that you hear me, that you let me try." Liam's fingers unconsciously tightened on the neck of his guitar. He felt raw, exposed, yet strangely drawn to the old man's words. He had spent years building walls, but now, standing in this vast room, those walls seemed to quiver. He wasn't sure if he wanted to forgive Leonard Hayes, but a part of him longed to understand. Alden stepped forward and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick envelope. He placed it on the table with care. "For your music," he said softly. "For the life you should have had." Liam stared at it. Money, letters, opportunities he had never dreamed of. He wanted to refuse to protect himself from being bought or manipulated. "I don't want to be bought," he whispered, the words trembling. Leonard shook his head gently. It's not about buying you. It's about offering what I should have long ago. It's an apology, and perhaps a chance to live a life you deserve with the freedom I denied you." Liam remained silent, the weight of years pressing down. He thought of hunger, of nights spent wondering if he would have a place to sleep, of every rejection, every struggle to survive. And yet he also thought of the music that had kept him alive. The songs he had written in secret, the notes that had carried him through despair. The guitar on his lap was more than wood and strings that was proof of his resilience, proof that he had survived when no one expected him to. "I heard you play once," Leonard said, his voice soft but steady. "When you were 16, outside your school, I was there, though you didn't know. You played a song about wanting to be seen. I remember thinking, this boy deserves better than I gave him." Liam's chest ached. That memory, the melody he had improvised, the vulnerability he had felt as he strummed the strings had been a secret, a private world. And now Leonard Hayes remembered it, recognized it, had been quietly watching him. The realization was both humiliating and strangely comforting. Leonard leaned forward, extending a trembling hand. "Let me see you now. Let me hear you play again." Liam hesitated. Fear, anger, and hesitation battled with longing and curiosity. His fingers hovered over the strings. Slowly, he strummed a chord. The sound resonated through the room, soft at first, then gaining strength as confidence returned. Notes spilled out, flowing into the sunlight, filling the space between grandfather and grandson. Leonard listened, eyes glistening with tears he refused to hide. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Liam played, pouring every fragment of emotion into the music pane, loneliness, hope, and longing. Leonard sat quietly, absorbing the melodies, the stories woven into each note. Finally, Liam stopped, chest heaving, fingers trembling. "You have a gift," Leonard whispered. "Don't let it go. Promise me you'll play no matter what. For yourself and for those who couldn't see you when they should have." Liam nodded. He didn't speak. Words felt inadequate. The envelope still sat on the table, unopened, yet it no longer seemed as important. The music, this connection, was worth more than any material offering. Later, Leonard shared stories Liam had never heard about his mother's childhood, about mistakes Leonard had made, about the life he had led that had made him distant and cold. For every harsh word Liam had carried for years, there was a story, an explanation, a regret that humanized the man he had once despised. Liam listened, feeling layers of anger soften, replaced by cautious understanding. Alden remained nearby, guiding the conversation when necessary, helping Liam navigate the sudden, dizzying flood of wealth, secrets, and unexpected family connection. Liam realized he had spent so long surviving, so long keeping everything at a distance, that he had never truly allowed anyone close. And now, in the presence of Leonard Hayes, he felt a strange, a terrifying possibility that he could allow himself to be seen, to be vulnerable, and perhaps to forgive. Days passed in a blur. Liam explored the estate, each room revealing treasures and comforts he had never imagined. He practiced music in a sunlit studio, played in hallways where acoustics made his guitar sing like never before, and slowly began to understand that wealth and comfort did not erase struggle. They offered a platform to create, to heal, to thrive. And Ruby's presence was never far from his thoughts. He thought about the cafe, her shy smile, the way her eyes had lingered on him as if seeing the real him for the first time. The thought made him ache. He wanted to see her again, to hear her laugh, to share his music with someone who truly understood it. The possibility of love, soft and tentative, lingered in his mind, promising something new. Leonard approached him one evening as Liam practiced a slow, gentle jazz melody in the studio. "Your music. It's like a bridge," Leonard said, "between past and future, pain and hope, anger and forgiveness. Keep it, protect it, and share it." Liam paused, fingers on the strings. "I never imagined this," he admitted. "I never imagined any of this." Leonard smiled faintly. Life has a way of surprising us, sometimes with loss, sometimes with love, but always with opportunity. Don't waste it. The days grew into weeks. Liam began to plan his return to campus. He wasn't going back empty-handed. He had resources, guidance, and perhaps for the first time, a family willing to support him. The envelope remained unopened for now, a symbol of both trust and reconciliation. He had earned the right to decide how he would use it, and for the first time, he felt capable of making choices without fear. On the morning of his departure, Liam stepped outside, guitar in hand. The sunlight warmed his face, the estate stretching behind him like a dream he had only just begun to believe in. Alden drove him back to the city, quiet for much of the ride, allowing Liam to absorb the enormity of the past weeks. Thought when he returned to campus, Ruby was waiting. She had recognized him immediately, as if she had known he would come back. "You came back?" she whispered, eyes wide, holding her sketchbook like a shield and a mirror all at once. "I had to," Liam said, a soft smile tugging at his lips. He set the guitar down gently and opened it, strumming the familiar chords. Music filled the courtyard, spreading warmth across the quiet morning. Ruby stepped closer, her sketchbook forgotten, and rested her head on his shoulder. Liam felt the music, the connection, the possibility of love intertwining with everything he had survived, everything he had learned. He had lost almost everything once, but in finding his music and confronting his past, and in accepting the fragile hope of forgiveness and love, Liam realized he had found something far greater, a future of his own making. The guitar sang beneath his fingers, the notes rising like a promise. And Liam finally allowed himself to believe that he could write the rest of his story not defined by struggle, but by courage, connection, and heart. And as Ruby listened, smiling softly against his shoulder, Liam knew that no matter what challenges remained, he would face them with music, hope, and the knowledge that